What's up everybody, Soul here with another video for your viewing pleasure, and today we're taking a look at a AMA that was on Reddit between Larian devs and anybody who would jump on Reddit and ask them a question. Of course, ask me anything, and they're answering some pretty great questions and giving some really good information in lieu of their new game, their new project, simply titled Divinity. And so there's a lot of speculation, there's a lot of hype and excitement, and I know a lot of people are stoked to play this game. They want to know what Larian's offering. Baldur's Gate 3 is amazing, and I know a lot of people are jumping into Divinity Original Sin 1 and 2 now to look back on what they've done. And so we're going to take a look at that real quick, see what we can learn. Make sure you check out my other Divinity Original Sin videos if you're interested and you're going to try the game for yourself. And without any further ado, let's take a look. So first up we have, can you tell us about the new mechanics in Divinity that you are most proud of? And so from Nick from Larian responds with, there was something that bothered me when I explored the starting areas of DOS 1, DOS 2, and BG3. It stares you right in the face if you think about it. In Divinity, I can finally do the thing I wanted to do every previous game. So, simple enough, right? Let's assume that he is basically saying you will be able to swim. Swimming confirmed. That's it. We're done. It's a wrap. It's over. No, I'm kidding. But honestly, we all start out on a beach in those games, and so it's probable that swimming is going to be the thing that he's alluding to here. However, you tell me. What do you think? Drop down in the comments and tell me all about it. What could he be talking about? Next is Divinity slated to run on Divinity Engine 5 or a clean slate design? So Artem from the head of gameplay responds, for each game we are bringing significant changes to our engine. Since Divinity engine is fully our own creation, it makes it easier to alter it to serve a new game rather than write a new engine from scratch. And so the technical director, Bert, responds as well, we have indeed moved to the 5th iteration of our engine for the next game. Increasing the size and density of the game was an important goal, but we have also substantially improved the visual quality of the game. A lot of effort has been put into increasing the quality of our materials and lighting in general. Character rendering specifically also received a lot of attention from the whole engine team. Really cool response there. So needless to say, this game is going to be beautiful. More beautiful than Baldur's Gate 3, we can pretty much assume at this point. The next question that's asked that I'm going to show right here is one that's very near and dear to my heart, and that is, will the looting system be random and level dependent, in quotations, like most items in DOS 1 and or 2, in quotations or parentheses, or will there be more handcrafted items like in Baldur's Gate 3? And so for me, this is really important. I love the randomness, but I also enjoy finding those unique set items. And so I like a nice little mix of the two. And the response we get is from the head of design, Nick, and he says, the Baldur's Gate 3 approach of handcrafting every magical item worked well. And it's something we've always wanted to do for DOS 2. Something we realized when working on randomized loot for DOS 1 and DOS 2 is that fully random loot is frequently confusing. So we added more and more rules and pre-made patterns to make it feel more intentional. In the end, randomization did not save us much time. So, really interesting statement there, but that's not saying yay or nay. So, it makes you wonder, are they going to move towards Baldur's Gate 3 and give more set items, set loot, or are they going to give you more randomized loot? Me personally, I wouldn't mind a healthy mix. DOS 2, DOS 1 is beautiful because you can get all that randomized loot, random stats, and it makes each item you find intriguing, exciting, and really fun. Remember, loot tables are set in those games, so getting rare loot with randomized points and attributes is really, really nice. But in Baldur's Gate 3, you have set equipment you can get. It makes it really easy for you to plan your run, but that also takes away from the fun, in my opinion. Part of the fun and the adventure is not knowing what you're going to get and what to look forward to. And while I understand some people really want to mash and plan the game out and make sure it's mastered and blah, blah, for players like myself, that kind of kills the game. So I want a healthy in-between. We can serve both camps, right? I don't know. You tell me. Now let's take a look at the story question. So here we got, how will you handle the canon issues of DOS 2 introduced? It basically acted as a soft retcon of the series. Will the new Divinity game continue with the new lore, or will you try to reconcile it with the previous games? I think this is a very good question. If you know about Divinity lore, it's very convoluted, confusing, and it seems like they kind of are playing some things, changing some things. It's not terrible, but it's kind of rocky. That's what I want to say. It's a little rocky. And so we have Adam from the writing director. He responds with, it's in the same continuity, but it's a standalone story. Long-term Divinity fans will find lots of familiar things, but it's never just fan service. It has to serve the story we're telling. The Divinity universe is full of weird and wonderful characters, and I'm really excited to be a part of that legacy. And so he kind of answers it and kind of doesn't. He just more or less tells us we got something to look forward to. There will be some continuity there, but it's also a standalone game within itself. So that means it's not a direct continuation of Divinity Original Sin 2 or 1, and we probably won't see those characters there. I don't know that for a fact. We might see like a Jahan or whatever. If you know, you know. You name it. We'll see. I can't wait. But we do have some more information on the story aspect. And so up next we have, I loved Baldur's Gate 3 and was planning to play Divinity Original Sin 1 and 2. But then I saw on Wikipedia that there are more games in the Divinity universe. Does the new game have story elements from the old games? And then this person, Adam, the writing director, again writes, I was a Larian fan before I was a Larian dev, and I played every Divinity game as a fan, in parentheses, and sometimes as a critic, in parentheses. I love both of the Original Sin games, and if you enjoy them and want to dig deeper into the catalog, I'd recommend Dragon Commander for something completely different. This might be like a small foreshadowing, just throwing it out there, might be a little bit of a hint and nod to what's coming. The new game isn't a sequel to any previous Divinity game. It's completely standalone. It is set in the same universe and continuity, so if you've played the earlier games, you'll find it familiar things. But just like you don't need to have lived through all of history to understand a specific time and place, you can come to Divinity without any prior knowledge at all. So this is going to be a entry point to the series. I'm thinking and that they're going to be rebranding here and trying to really sell something with their smash hit of Baldur's Gate 3, bringing in so many different people into the Divinity universe and people taking an interest in Larian Studios as a whole. They're using this as a entry point or stepping stone to bring those people in and really consolidate their ideas as far as what they've offered in the Divinity universe. This is made apparent in this next question, which is, have you brought on new narrative designers for Divinity? The lore feels quite disconnected. And then here we've got a senior writer, Kevin, responding, as a matter of fact, we brought on a storytelling team devoted to developing deep and consistent lore/stories in the Divinity universe. And so the way I read that and interpret that is they're basically stating, hey, we are absolutely 110% going to consolidate all these ideas and themes and make sure that it's something that is understandable and digestible to the new audience. And we're really going to consolidate what Divinity is and move forward with something new. I don't know that for a fact. That's a little bit of a deep dive there on that, but that's how I interpret that. And then the last question on the story front that I have here in this sequence is Divinity going to be pulling any particular ideas/gameplay concepts from the original titles? Divinity, Divine Divinity, Beyond Divinity, and etc. Why drop the original Sin title now? Love all your games. Got to meet the team and Swin Vic at PAX East a few times, and I was always blown away at how open and willing to chat he was. Can't wait for what's next. The response comes from Swin, which is the game director. And so there's never been a Divinity, and now that we can finally make the game we always wanted, we thought it was time to do so. We're taking the opportunity to vastly improve and expand the world building and set a new direction for the series. And so there it is from the director himself. He is saying, this is our chance. This is what I was more or less guessing was the case. We're going to rebuild this franchise, not rebuild, but reframe it, restructure it, so that it's digestible, it's cohesive and understandable, and this is what we're going to work off of from this point forward. So really, really cool thing there. I'm excited for it. Definitely cannot wait to see what's coming. Next up, we've got in BG3, I really enjoyed the aspects of ending the day and going into camp to interact with your companions. Not so much for refilling the spell slots. Amen. Will there be something similar in Divinity? And so we've got the writing director Adam here saying, we'll give you space to build your relationships with the companions. I won't go into too much detail here, and yes, you won't have to refill any spell slots. So really interesting thing right there. There will be a space for you to build relationships with your companions. What does that mean? We're going to be building a town. We're going to build a castle, a village, a caravan. Will there be a camp? It's exciting to think about. Regardless, there will be a space for it. And that's not all. They want to build on it from what it seems. Next is, with each game, you've improved in writing a story and narrative for your games. What are some of the things you would like to improve narrative-wise compared to your previous entries? So this is a very good question in my opinion. And so the senior writer, Kevin, has responded to this one. He says, companion relationships. Firstly, to have more interaction between companions, not just with more and better banter, but to have them develop deeper relationships with each other, just as they do with players. Secondly, to ramp up player friendship and romance more subtly, so relationship building feels natural. This is exciting. I love games like Final Fantasy 15, where you can hear the whole entourage cutting up, cracking jokes, picking on each other. It felt like a team, a group, a family. And that's, I mean, when you're going up against the world, gods, demons, whatever, and you're putting your life on the line, you're going to be bonding with those people. You're going to see the worst of them and the best of them, and you're going to learn to love them regardless. And there's something magical about that. And it sounds like that's what they're striving for over here at Larian. Very impressive response to a very good question. This one says, specifically to Adam at Larian, where do you feel the writing lacked in Baldur's Gate 3, and how do you plan to improve it for Divinity? And so Adam responds with, two things come to mind. One, I'd like the companions and other characters to feel like a more natural part of the world. I love the BG3 companions, but the nature of their stories means that you're mostly displaced, strangers in a strange land. Some of them are returning home, but they're in unfamiliar territory as the game begins. I'd like to see how far we can push the diversity of companions and their stories even farther. That's pretty interesting right there. It's a really very, very interesting statement. Number two, I spend a lot of time thinking about structure. The nature of CRPGs is that there are often several stories happening simultaneously, whether that's a smaller quest alongside a main plot, a developing romance, a conflict between party members, or encounters with an antagonist. I'm focusing on mapping the shapes of those stories so that there's pleasing overlap in the narrative patterns. It's the sciencey side of narrative, but it has a big impact on the writing of individual moments within those structures. So that's a fascinating answer. I love it. This team clearly are on it, very in depth and involved with what they're doing, as that's apparent in their work, right? But like, this is a fantastic answer to a very simple question, of an eloquent question, a good question, but I love it. Very, very good information here. Next, we have a modding question, which this is interesting. It says, what are some of the mods you have seen in Baldur's Gate 3 that have made you say, we should have thought of that, or we definitely have to include that next time around? Michael, from the head of publishing, responds, Car Wild Shape, which is hilarious. That is absolutely hilarious. If you don't know about that mod, it's very entertaining. Yeah. And then we have down here Nick from the head of design saying, we're taking notes on all the UI mods for sure. The UI team worked very hard to bring the complexity of an open world D&D adventure to video game format. But we had more improvements in mind that we just couldn't cram into our releases. Happy we managed to make the UI moddable in the first place. Interesting response there from Nick. And then Elena, from the art, who's the art director, says, love all the mods regarding player appearance. Lots of very creative ideas in terms of combining outfits, hairstyles, and whatnot. Our character team is always looking at those, and we take note of what our community wants with a wink. Love, love, love game devs who pay attention to their community and are always watching, have their ear to the ground. Very impressive stuff there. Next, we have, what couldn't you do in Baldur's Gate 3 DOS 2 or Divinity Original Sin 2 that you will be able to do in the upcoming Divinity? And then the head of design, Nick, responds, we figured out ways to burn things that we could never burn before. We'll still give you something to put out those fires, though. No worries. That's hilarious. If you know Divinity and their games, they love setting things on fire, burning everything. This is phenomenal, hilarious, and great. Next is, will there be co-op planned for release? If so, can you say how many players? This is a great question. We don't have enough good co-op games, just period dot. And Divinity, Baldur's Gate, Larian Studios are responsible for some of our bests yet. So this is definitely on theme. And so we have the technical director, Bert. He responds, yes, co-op will be available for release. The amount of players playing together will be depending on the final party size. That's interesting. So it hasn't been finalized. Something you would think would be very basic and easy to say, he's not saying. But since modding is planned for this project as well, player will be essentially free to extend this. Interesting. There is no hard limit to the amount of co-op players. Interesting. Can't wait to see what that means and what is going on there. Cannot wait. This one's another modding question and very entertaining in some ways. And this says, the WASD movement mod was one of the most downloaded and beloved mods in Baldur's Gate 3. Will the new Divinity game include native keyboard movement controls like WASD right out of the box? And then Artem, from the head of gameplay, simply says, no. No. And I love it. I think that's hilarious. Sometimes the answer is just no. Now we got a couple combat questions. Absolutely love these. Some very important stuff to me, and it might be to you, but here we go. You mentioned that the new game will have a quote-unquote new rule set in the PC Gamer interview. By that, are you guys creating a new combat system away from the action point-based combat on the past DOS games? The mechanics rather than the spells itself. I assume this would allow you to be a bit more creative with full control of your hands rather than with the D&D rule set. Also, Ada Laird, original character. And so Nick, from the head of design, responds with this, and he says, we went through our original ideas for DOS 1 and DOS 2, looked again at how they worked out in practice, picking up some inspirations from our BGAE, or basically Baldur's Gate 3 early access and post-release journey, consulted the star charts to see what we need to do to stay competitive, and cooked a new action economy and character progression system. Holy crap, that's exciting to hear. Feedback from BG3 players trying DOS 2 for the first time has been especially interesting to us, seeing the two worlds colliding, and they're not wrong. A lot of people are jumping in on Divinity Original Sin now that they've completed Baldur's Gate 3 and Divinity's been announced, and it's amazing. So many people say the combat system is better. Continue on. We hope that both fans of BG3 and fans of DOS 2 will find the new system intuitive but deep. That's so exciting. Divinity Original Sin 2, if you don't know, is amazing, but its combat is peerless in my opinion. It is far better than Baldur's Gate 3. Baldur's Gate 3 is an amazing game, looks beautiful, it's very cinematic, the storyline's very fun, and it's great. Everything's amazing there, but the combat never quite felt as good as Divinity Original Sin 2, and going back and playing it again as I am right now, oh man, it just doesn't compare. And so this is exciting. This is one thing that I'm most excited about. Next is, will Divinity be sticking to the armor/magic armor system found in DOS 1 and DOS 2? And this is a great question because it's not a popular system, and for good reason, but not getting into that now. Nick responds with, Divinity will not keep the magic armor system from DOS 2. Holy. There will be ways to protect your character from harm, but you will not have to wait before you can use your fun skills on enemies. That's the key right there. We are still cooking a system that makes sure that you have to work harder to stun lock solo bosses with level 1 skills, but it won't be tied to damage. That is fantastic. Holy guac. Amazing answer. Magic armor out the window from what we can see. That is news right there. Next, we've got another question right here on the combat side, and that is, there have been a lot of mixed opinions regarding the cursed environmental effects. Personally, I thought they were fun to consider, but over time became a slog to play through. The oil field fight took ages to complete, for example. If you know, you know. What's the internal opinion on this, and will we see their returns in your next game? And so we have Nick here again. He says, it is cool to have alternative versions of elemental surfaces that change how you have to play around them. We maybe went too far last time with giving every surface a cursed and blessed variant. Few people immediately guessed the function of the blessed oil, for example. The duration of combat encounters is also on our mind. Oil field fight directly inspired the tech we showcased in BG3 that allows multiple simple enemies to move and attack at the same time, cutting down on waiting by the player. This is something I noticed right away, and I absolutely loved about BG3. We also try to avoid monsters crawling around very slowly. Great response. Really good information there. And then coming in with another combat related answer, we have, what aspect of the game are you most excited about? And Michael from the head of publishing responds on this one. He says, personally, the combat. If you go back and play DOS 2, or indeed play it for the first time, you forget how snappy it is, how much freedom there is. Nick and the combat team are really cooking, and I think it'll be the best combat we've ever produced. But I'm biased. I like Nick. So honesty from Michael there, but that is important. The best combat they've produced so far, which we have seen in DOS 2. This boasts to be better. Cannot wait. Can't say it enough. I cannot wait for this. Next, we have anything in particular you are excited for players to get to experience in this game? And then the answer we get is from Swin, the game director. He says, there's a lot, but we prefer to show and not tell. That said, Lizard Romance seems like it's going to be popular. Wow. So we're going to be full in there, not with furries, but with scalies. Cannot wait. After that, we got another one. In Divinity, lizards are hot, elves are cannibals and weird, and dwarves are seafaring people. Are you planning on giving the orcs a little special twist to differentiate them from the standard fantasy tropes? And then we have Swin responding again with, without saying which species are in the game, all of them have something unique. So there's not a tremendous amount of information there. It's a silent acknowledgement of the orcs, which we saw in the trailer, we kind of know. And then he's basically saying they're going to have something that's going to make them unique, which we can imagine. But they also might be saying here that there might be other races. I don't know. I don't want to jump to conclusions, but I'm kind of wondering if that's not what he's saying there. Next, we've got what folktales and legends will serve as an inspiration for the upcoming Divinity. I've personally compared the story of the trailer to the legend of Angria Mainyu, or the birth of all evils of the world. So we got Adam responding here as the writing director. He says, I won't mention anything specific, sorry, because there are too many to mention. But there are so many books about the occult on Swin's desk that I sometimes think he's actually a necromancer. That's hilarious. That is absolutely hilarious. And then next we have, what story genre best describes the atmosphere and setting of Divinity? More the direction of Baldur's Gate 3 and high fantasy, or will it be more grim dark setting as the trailer kind of suggested? Or Smith, something entirely different. I almost said Smith, that is terrible. Anyways, Adam responds right here as well, and he says, I don't think there's one specific genre / subgenre that could describe the entire game. I will say there's a lot of folk horror percolating in my brain. There it is. So this game is going to be dark. There's all kinds of dark things being researched as far as like the occult. Necromancy is what was said there and mentioned, and so we can expect some very dark themes. It was suggested in the trailer. It is horrific, it is jarring, it is awe-inspiring, and it looks like the game is definitely going to be putting itself in that world, and I'm here for it. I am here for it. Next, do you plan on having Divinity be playable on the Steam Deck? And so Bert responds here with, we all love the Steam Deck. Since BG3 was one of the most played games on the platform, we will do our best to again release on the platform. Solid answer. Basically in my mind reads as yes, yes, and yes. Next is, will the game be playable in a more third-person view as opposed to DOS 2 isometric camera? And so Bert responds here as well, and he says the camera will work very similar as in BG3, so a hybrid of top-down and third-person camera. That's what we want. We want Divinity Original Sin with BG3's quality cinematography, camera work, lighting, blah, blah, blah. We want it, and it's coming. Next is, when creating companion characters, where do you start? From an aesthetic vibe, an archetype, a story role that needs to be filled, and where do you find your inspiration? And so we got Gerald here responding. He's the art director, and he says, from a concept art standpoint, I see companions as an opportunity to inject culture and history of the world we are building, either overtly in their costume design and appearance, or subtly in their accessories details. This may not exactly be a starting point, but it's a great foundation for inspiration. It's a solid answer and a good understanding of their framing of mind as to how we get these companions that we end up with. Here we have another question acknowledging that trailer and its dark theme, and so it says, hello, hope you're all doing well. So you've mentioned that the next Divinity game will offer more player freedom and stronger consequences. How does the philosophy apply to evil or morally darker playthroughs? In previous games, evil choices existed, but they sometimes felt less fully supported or less central compared to the more heroic paths, which often felt like the default experience. We have a villain here on our hands, by the way. That said, I really love the evil endings in Baldur's Gate 3, especially the Dark Urge path. Can we expect even more narrative depth reactivity, or unique paths for the player who lean into selfish, ruthless, or villainous choices this time around. Thank you for your time. I can't wait to see more Divinity. And so we right here have Adam responding with, if you've seen our announcement trailer, you have an idea how dark the world of Divinity is. We want to give players the opportunity to be the light in the darkness, an inspiration, a hero, a champion. We'll also let them leave the world even worse than they found it. We're pushing as far as we can on player agency. If you haven't seen that trailer, go watch it. Go watch it. I don't know how much more dark it can get, but if we can leave the world worse than that, whoa. Holy guacamole, whoa. I don't know. I said just a few scenes ago, I'm here for it. I don't know if I am right now. I'm having second thoughts. Next is quick. It says, will there be sex scenes? And then Greg from the head of animation says, does a bear in the woods? Does a bear everything? Anything? Does a bear shit in the woods? Love it. Absolutely love it. The answer is yes. The answer is yes. Next one is a bit of a touchy subject for quite a few people, and that is, first, I just want to say I love your games. I played Divinity 2 OS and BG3, and they are both fantastic. I'm curious, what is your opinion on the role of generative AI in the game development process and for your studio in particular? Some studios like Embark or Warhorse, as well as several East Asian ones like Everstone, seem relatively optimistic on it, and they've talked about using it to make bigger and faster games. On the other hand, I think a lot of studios and a lot of gamers think it predominantly undermines the creative process and cuts corners. I'm especially curious about if there is a split between different sections, like writing versus art versus coding, etc., since it seems like the views of the adoption of AI differ quite a bit by category. Thanks. And so here we got Swin responding. He's stepping up to the plate on this one, and he says, hi, happy to hear you enjoyed our games. So first off, there is not going to be any Gen AI art in Divinity. And so that's a really quick, swift response. And I want you to know this is the only one I've included on my video. If you go and you read through all the different questions, there are quite a few regarding AI, and more or less in nice little capsulation. Larian Studio has more or less just kept saying, it's not happening. We're not using AI. We're not going to use AI. We're going to play with AI here. We're going to look at AI here, but there's no AI. Nothing's finalized AI. No AI art. So just throwing that out there. Make sure you read it for yourself. You might interpret it differently. That's how I saw it. Continuing on. I know there's been a lot of discussion about us using AI tools as part of the concept art exploration. We already said this doesn't mean the actual concept art is generated by AI, but we understand it created confusion. So, to ensure there is no room for doubt, we've decided to refrain from using Gen AI tools during concept art development. That way, there can be no discussion about the origin of the art. Swift, clean, and effective. Having said that, we continuously try to improve the speed in which we can try things out. The more iterations we can do, the better in general the gameplay is. We think Gen AI can help with this, and so we're trying things out across departments. Our hope is that it can aid us to refine ideas faster, leading to more focused development cycle, less waste, and ultimately a higher quality game. The important bit to note is that we will not generate creative assets that end up in a game without being 100% sure about the origin of the training data and the consent of those who created the data. If we use a Gen AI model to create an in-game asset, then it'll be trained on data we own. Whew. Very interesting stuff right there. So for me, you can read this different ways. Some people are just staunchly opposed to AI. Here's the way I see it. It's coming. It's here. This is a competitive world. And unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you see it, it's a tool. And if you don't keep up with the times and utilize the tools to your best of your ability, you tend to fall behind. And so they've already set the standard with Baldur's Gate 3. The onslaught of games that are going to be copying that are coming. Believe it, you, me. They're coming. And so they have to not fall behind on everything. Otherwise, game development becomes a nightmare. It takes years to develop a game. And if you can't compete and you're constantly going back to the drawing board trying to update your systems and stay aboard, especially the rate AI makes everything work and flow, where do you begin? Where do you end? Some of you guys know more about this than me. Y'all might still disagree with me and think I'm crazy. Regardless, I think this is a very tactful, good answer from Swin. Bringing in the next question to kind of help dismiss some of the fears that AI generates. Right here we have, how much bigger is the dev team for Divinity compared to Baldur's Gate 3? Do you expect Larian Studios to keep growing for each new game? Or do you expect a limit sooner or later? Do you prefer that a larger game studio focuses on one game at a time, or split up to work on projects simultaneously? And so Swin responds to this one as well. He says, we were 411 people at the end of Baldur's Gate 3 and have around 500 people working on Divinity now. So that's a pretty decent increase. Our teams evolve in the function of the games we try to make and what we think the size of the market is. We grew a lot during Baldur's Gate 3 because we wanted to make a cinematic RPG with loads of choices and consequences, but we knew that there was a market and scaled accordingly. Our growth has slowed down a bit as we have most of the team in place to make a big cinematic RPG, but there are still a few things that we didn't do before that we are doing now. So very clean, interesting answer. And so for those of you who are often against AI, and it's not necessarily wrong, I'm not disagreeing with you because there's definitely faults with AI. Larian Studio seems to be handling this right. Their team is growing and expanding. Unlike most game companies who are laying off and incorporating more and more AI, Larian Studios is growing and expanding their teams to do more. So very interesting information right there. Back to the lighter stuff, will we have full character customization similar to Baldur's Gate 3? And then Elena, the art director, responds with, we are planning to have an even better one. More colors, more options, and more control. Man, better, huh? Cannot wait. Cannot wait. Next is, will Divinity 3, or just Divinity, be in early access? Any hints on the second game you guys are making? And so Bert responds to this one with, we would certainly prefer to do another early access since that provides invaluable information from our players. It allows us to iterate and improve the game a lot. And he's not wrong there. It does create some gulfs and gaps when you have parts of the game that release that were never in early access. You can see the differences in the quality versus what was in early access they got criticized on and tweaked versus what they didn't. And so that part can be a little bit of a disparity, but an early access can still be good. And so this more or less tells me we can expect one to be coming. And so there you have it. Those are the quotes that I saw and felt were most appropriate and important and worth mentioning and showing here. You make sure you go check it out. I do have the link down below in the description. Also, get at me in the comments. What do you think about this news? Do you disagree with my opinion? Are you excited about this information? What does it make you feel? Tell me all about it. I'm so eager to read your comments. I'll definitely be getting back at you. And let's talk about this information. Larian Studios is cooking, y'all. And I am stoked. I cannot wait to see what is coming out of that kitchen. With that said, huge shout out and thank you to my supporters, my soldiers. You guys and gals are the ones that keep the content flowing, keep me going, and yeah, keep the lights glowing. So thank you so much for your support. Make sure you check out the links down below if you're interested in supporting yourself, whether you're a YouTube member, Ko-Fi, or Patreon. Any and all those things are fantastic. I'm definitely welcome and glad to have you. At the very least, please drop me a like and subscribe. And until next time, guys, I will catch y'all later. Bye.